were on the scene. So, hey, I wanted to talk to you about, so I went from 15 expert, got older, started racing 16 expert, and my sister, I had a sister that was racing bikes too. She was in the 13 to 14 class. And of course, there wasn't a lot of girls at the time, but there was enough to form a class. And she actually got pretty good at it herself. She actually got number 2 in her district, and she was on the national circuit. We early on, both my sister and I started getting recognized in bike racing. And we actually had a couple different factory offers to be full factory. And the interesting thing is that was a BMX kid's dream to be on a factory team.
Absolutely.
And I remember that so here I am. And we had gone to a few nationals, mainly just what was in Washington and what was in Oregon. And both my sister and I were actually very good on our bikes. And the interesting thing is, since we're minors, those sponsors went and talked to my parents first, which is only logical to do. And my parents kind of had, I think, an unreasonable request. If I was going to be sponsored by a factory team, they wanted them to take my sister too. And some of these teams already had a girl, or it was the other way around. They already had a 17 expert or 16 expert, but they didn't have girls on their team to complete their whole team profile. And so my parents were kind of odd in that they said, nope, if you can't take both of them, then no deal. And so I know we lost a factory opportunity there. Another time there was another factory offer, I think it was from Elf, and they wanted, they just wanted me. Now, if you think about it, this is 40 years ago. I can't remember all the details, but 40 years ago, I remember talking to my parents about it, and my dad was uncomfortable with me or my sister being away from home if they were not there with us. And so their requests, I thought, kind of unreasonable, and that they were expecting that our factory ride would cover their airfare, my airfare, and my sister's airfare. That's a lot of expense. And so we had some opportunities that got shot down. And when I learned about that, I was not happy with my dad. It kind of put a little bit of a rift for a while there, because, I didn't see any danger of me traveling people that he didn't know, because we're all kind of like a BMX family, right? And so that was a real bummer. So I did not end up with much more than just a small sponsor. Some local sponsors. Vans Tennis Shoes was sending me tennis shoes, so I didn't have to buy any tennis shoes. But so I never actually ended up with a factory ride.
Wow, dude. So I think you said Elf, and what was the other one?
Well, I think earlier when we were talking, my parents did not want to disclose it, but I suspect it was Mongoose, because I wanted to go talk to him. My parents said, I've already talked to him. It's not going to happen.
Oh,
so
wow.
Okay,
what year are we talking about when this happened?
Okay, so I started racing when I was in 1981. That's when I started. And so that would have been 1982 and 3.
Okay.
And then I also, when I was 16 years old, I was winning a lot of races. Not always some of the really big ones. Sometimes I made the national mains. Sometimes I did. But if it was a double point race or a triple point race or a state championship race, I won a lot of races. And then finally I obtained the #1 plate, which you've seen in some of the pictures. And I ran that for a whole year. And I was successful enough to the point where I decided one day that I would go through the ABA magazine and actually look at how many points I had as a 17 expert, And I went through every single state in those magazines, and I found out that I had more points than any other 17 expert in the nation, but they weren't national points, and there's a difference. But
Yeah.
if you look at it that way, I was national number 1 in points as a 17
There you go.
expert, but national points. And so, you know, it's a lot of money. I mean, my parents spent a lot of money driving around, flying around to all these different places. And I wanted to talk about something that I think kind of levels the playing field. I realized that if it wasn't for my parents being willing to take me to all these races, I wouldn't have been able to do what I did. I wouldn't have never got really